Hey guys, it's Tristan here with a tutorial on making a Camaro using Maya, Autodesk Maya. I'm going to go through the low poly creation process in this set of videos, and then we'll see if we get to cover some other things like high poly or texturing. But for right now, this is just going to be a focus on a low poly creation utilizing a front, side, back, and top template. So just to let you know what we're going to be working with, I grabbed this model, this reference off of, for the 2010 Camaro off of Google Maps, and this is by Onno van Braam. So I just want to say I didn't actually create this template, but it is going to be what we use as a basis for what we're working on here. And then I also I grabbed a couple of additional images from Google Images of different Camaros, 2010 Camaros. From a few different angles so that I can get an idea of things that I might potentially be missing as far as the overall kind of like dimensions and all of that is concerned. And then I also went onto Google Maps and actually looked up some information about the Camaro because it's always a good idea to actually have accurate information about what your model is actually going to be sized, so we can actually make sure that the pieces that we're constructing are fairly accurate. So I like to do this in a little bit of a combination of freehand and a little more open. So that you can use image templates in Maya, but I actually don't. I tend not to prefer using that just because it introduces some additional complications that sometimes aren't really worth the effort. So what I'm going to do is we're going to be looking at this template here, and we're going to bring this into our scene, and then we're basically going to construct a model off of this. Okay, so let's talk about the information we need. So first off, I know that this template is in the dimensions of 960 by 676, and then I know if I look at my Camaro information that Camaros are 188 to 190 inches by 75 inches by 53 inches. And so I always work with centimeters in Maya, and just in game development production in general, usually centimeters is it's going to be a more reliable measurement. You can switch to inches if you want, but so if you go to like Google, you can see that the conversion is 190 inches is 482.6 centimeters, and then 75, 190.5, and then 53 is 134.62. So there's a couple of things that I usually do because, like I said, I usually want to make this a little bit freehand, but have some additional control over it. So first off, I just want to get an idea of what my general scale is going to be. So I'm going to make a cube, and I'm going to construct this cube so that it has the same dimensions as the model that I need, roughly, just so that I can use this as a basis. And I'm actually probably not going to model with this cube, but I just want to make sure that I've got a good size. So first off, that will be the, let's see, so 482.6 is 482.6 in depth. That should work out pretty good. Then we have 190.5 in width. And then we have 134.62 in height. And just so that I know that it's also on the floor, I'm going to switch to my move tool, hit the insert key real quick so that I can move the pivot. I'm going to hold down the V key. I'm going to snap that to the ground, hit the insert key again to switch back to the normal move tool. And then at the top here in this little dialog, I'm going to type in 000, and that'll make sure that I have that my rough size template. And I'm going to just rename this. So I'm going to call this Camaro size reference, just so I can see that that's what it is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a an image plane. Well, not an image plane, actually. I'm going to create a plane that I'm going to use for an image. So that'll be, go to create a plane just by clicking on my poly modeling tab here. I'm going to hide the Camaro size reference real quick so that I can go to this plane. And the easy thing to do is because I know the dimensions are 960 by 676. I can just do 960 by 676, and that can give me a really basic, like a simple baseline. But I'm also going to make sure that this has 1, 1, and 1 for my subdivisions, height and width. And I'm going to call this Camaro template. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assign the texture that I have for this one. So I'll go to my attribute editor, right click. I'm going to select assign favorite material. In this case, I'm going to make it a Lambert. And I'm going to make this one a, I'm going to call this Camaro template. And then I'm going to go ahead and assign a color to this. Select a file. Under image name, I'm going to navigate to the folder where I have this stuff. And it looks like, yeah, I've got my Camaro here. Let me find the one I'm using for the template. Cool. And then I'm just going to hit 6 on the keyboard to bring this up. And then we're going to make a couple of quick edits here. So first off, I'm going to temporarily hide the grid. I might actually bring that back later. So I'm going to go to display grid and uncheck that real quick. Because this was not a square texture or a square image, I'm sorry, a square plane, it actually is not representing the image correctly because we matched the image dimensions to the plane. So if I open up my UV editor, you will notice that it actually, if I turn on shaded view, that's actually where the plane itself is, rather than being on the whole detail. So what I can do is I can select that plane, and then I can right click, and I can select mapping, planar mapping, and I can also go to options. So shift right click. Then I have the option of best plane. I always select best plane because that's pretty much always the correct one to use. And I use keep image width height ratio in most cases, but I'm actually going to uncheck that here because I want it to project to the exact 0 to 1 space. So I'm just going to hit project. And then that way it'll take up 100% of the space that we need. And that should work out pretty well. I can go ahead and close my UV editor. And then I can actually just make sure I got to take a look at this and see that it's actually rotated on the correct axis. So let's see. So let's see. So I can click on this here. I can project this. And actually what I could do to make this a little bit easier is I could actually just swap this. So I could say the projection height is going to be the 960, and then the projection width is going to be 960, and the projection height is going to be 676. And actually that works out pretty well. So then that'll mean that I know that this is exactly the same dimensions. And then if we look here, we'll see that not only is it in the projected space, but it's also showing the correct dimensions, which is great. Okay, so that's a start, but we need to also make sure that we have this split up into 4 separate templates that we can use for the different parts. And this is usually pretty easily done. You can just go to the mesh tools. I can select insert edge loop tool, and I actually need to change my settings here. So if I go to my options to open that up, I'm going to switch to relative distance from edge, and I'm just going to click so that I get like an edge between these two, the top and side, and the front and back views. And then I'm also going to do another one to cut that. And actually, I think I'm going to do this roughly at around where the floor is here. And okay, cool. So that works out fine. And then what I can do is I can essentially go to select each of these faces. So I can select this face, and and then I can go to Edit, Mesh, Extract, and that'll allow me to separate that face as a separate model. I can do the same thing here, and I can hit the G key to extract that face, and then I can do the same thing with this one. And then what you'll notice as a result of that, it'll create a little bit of history here, so I'm probably going to go to Edit, Delete All by Type, History. Let's see. Might also grab these, drop them out of their hierarchy. And so then I can just rename each of these. So I can, by the way, middle mouse drag to move things out of their hierarchy location. So I'm going to call this side template. Copy that. Select this one. Make it the top template. Grab this one. Make it the front template. Grab this one. Make it the back template. And then really I can just take these two groups and delete them, since I already went to go to Edit, Delete All by Type, History. And then I've got my templates here. But what I need to do is make sure that they're actually positioned where I want them to be. So I'm going to select that Camaro size reference, Shift H to unhide it. And then what I can do is I can select these pieces and I can start kind of positioning them where I want them to be. And then I can essentially scale them all together to make sure that they're the correct size. So if I were to select each of these pieces first, I can grab my rotate tool. If I hold down the E key and click down the left mouse, I can also turn on discrete rotate, which helps just so that I can rotate things by more even divisions. And so what my goal is here is to basically get this scaled down so that it matches the overall size of this cube. And I'm also going to probably want to see through the cube so I can see a little more clearly. So I'm going to right-click, Assign Favorite Material, Lambert, and then in that Lambert, I'm going to call this Transparent. Called Transparent Test. And then I can just increase the transparency on this material. And let's see. All right, and yeah, and maybe somewhere around 50% will allow me kind of a good idea of what's going on here. And also, whenever I'm working with templates, I usually want to have the camera a little bit less perspective. And you can often do that by going to View, Camera Attribute Editor. And there's a few options that you can select here, but one is that you could adjust the focal length so that you can make like a slightly higher focal length will make things a little bit less distorted by perspective. So I have a focal length here of about 70 and an angle of view just automatically adjusts as a result. So you'll notice that if you have a very low focal length, it does a lot of perspective distortion, whereas if you have a higher focal length, it looks a little more uniform, not quite orthographic, but enough that you can kind of tweak that, which is useful. So okay, so I've got this here. Let's go ahead and grab my pieces. Let's make sure we're looking at this from the top. So I'm going to hit the spacebar real quick, and I'm going to look at my my different pieces here, because I actually can go to shading, turn on hardware texturing for each of my my viewports, and then I also might want to do wireframe on shaded so I can get a better idea of what I'm looking at, and that'll help quite a lot too. I'm gonna actually do this in all 4 viewports, and so then I'm gonna hit the spacebar real quick to focus on the top view. And so I'm not gonna try to be 100% accurate, but I'm gonna grab all 4 of these. Oops. There we go. I had made a layer here, so. Okay, so grab all 4 of these. And just, scale them down until I basically positioned this so that it's aligned with the vehicle, with my size reference. And I'm just being careful to make sure that I'm actually keeping the all 4 of them selected. And it looks like my size reference might be a little bit larger because they said like 188 to 190. But so roughly, okay. So I think this will probably be okay. And then what we can do is I can go out of this viewport. I can switch to say my side view here. And I'm going to hit the insert key, snap with the V key to the bottom here. Hit the insert key again, switch to the rotate tool so I can rotate that up. And then I'm going to do the same for each of these parts, and then I just want to make sure that I'm roughly positioning them where they need to be. So in this case, I think I'm going to snap, hold down the V key. Well, actually, I probably can't hold down the V key in this case. I'm going to snap the position to match right where the tire is located, and it really doesn't matter whether I'm in the front or off to the side a little bit. But then I can rotate that up so we can see it, and then I'll do the same thing for this piece. So insert key, hit the Windows key by mistake. Insert key, position this. Roughly right around there, probably good. Then I can rotate that one up and place it here. And we can see, like, if just for frame of reference. Yeah, so that's pretty close. Okay, so they're pretty much right on top of each other there. And so what I can do is actually I'm going to flip the normals on this one. So I'm going to go to Mesh Display, Reverse, and that way I will see this from the opposite end. I'm going to move this forward, have that one backward, and then we just want to make sure that we're kind of positioning these so that they all match up with what we were expecting. Okay, so then it looks like I gotta get gotta get that down. And then you'll notice here that we have, we can't see this on this side. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch to having backface culling on that particular piece. And now we'll probably set up another viewport so that we can see these more clearly when it comes to the full thing. But I'm going to go ahead and slide these over here so I have both of them selected and just kind of nudging them so that they line up inside that box. And okay, so then I pretty much have what I need to work with in order to manipulate this piece. I know roughly what the size is supposed to be. I have my side view, I have my front view. Each of those are lined up. These two views are lined up. And so in general, it looks like we'll be in pretty good shape with that. And then we can go ahead and start the modeling process. So let's go ahead and get started on that in the next video.